30 seconds. And before we get started, just as a reminder, this channel is for educational or perhaps entertainment purposes only, whichever one prefers. Good to go. Hello everybody. Happy Sunday to y'all. Hope y'all doing well. Had a good weekend, I hope. Let's see. Want to say hello to everybody over on Odysee, Rumble, and YouTube. Good to see y'all. Hello, Roiling Water, Kyla, True Detective. Just trying to get some of my screens here. Hey, Black Uni, Neo Ace, welcome to the Last Timers Club. Glad to have you with us, and thank you for your support. And True Detective, also member for 13 months, says sovereignty and liberation all the way. Hell yeah. Always good to see you, sister. Hello, Tom. Great to see you, brother. Sovereign Invincible. Good to see you, too. It's nice talking with you. Uwu Dolphin. Zillow Watch. Lawrence. Hey, Lawrence. Casimir. Hey. Bizwoofer. Hey. Good to see you. Priest, good to see you. Sydney, great to see you. Boss, hello, hello. Good to see you as well. And anyone else I may have missed, hello, Adam, Delina, and Valerie, and Trance. Okay. So, let's get into this case. So, this is the Coma near-death experience and heartbreaking, heart-crushing life script of Rob. To say that Rob's been put through the ringer is an understatement. It's just incredible. This is just one of those cases that's probably going to stick with you. You know, there's always that list, right? Of just, I mean, but he's got the strength like no other. And he reminds me of someone I speak to a little bit. And Cheryl, if you're out there, I hope you're doing well. It's not the exact kind of thing, but there's some similarities, Cheryl, if you're listening. So, his father was killed at the age of 5 in a steel mill accident. I mean, I don't like saying accident, but, you know, whatever. Okay. His daughter was diagnosed with, I believe they call it Rett syndrome. At 18 months old, and requiring constant around-the-clock care by the parents and medical professionals. At the age of 56, Rob is diagnosed with bone spurs, and that's kind of you'll see about where that all leads. And then the brother-in-law uninstalls. He also saw himself as a hologram. His body is a hologram, which is interesting. And that goes to even further cement the truth that, this is one big wild illusion, although we're experiencing it. And I don't minimize that, trust me, because, like some of the new age crowds, like, oh, well, it's an illusion, this, that. No, I mean, yeah, it's an illusion, like, yes, but at the same time, it's an interactive illusion, right? That we're all involved with. There's still feeling here, right? There's still pain and suffering and joy and happiness and everything in between. So I never, ever will minimize the suffering and the atrocities and the insanity that just is pervasive here. So let's get into this case. I don't think we're going to be here too long tonight, but we'll see. Hopefully not. All right. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. Okay. Come on. Where are we here? Good. Come on. Let's go. There we go.
Yeah. My parents were Italian immigrants, and when I was 5 years old, my father was killed in a steel mill accident. So when he passed away, I felt like I had lost my identity. There was this tremendous void in my life, and I didn't really know where to go from there. But what had happened to me is that before my father had died, we were in a very, very small 2-bedroom house, and my other brothers had 1 bedroom, and I was in a crib with my parents. I was laying there one night, and all of a sudden came this glowing orb. It was a light that was very unnatural. It wasn't like a light bulb or light of the moon or anything like that. It was its own kind of light that just seemed to seep through the ceiling. And as it descended, it was this beautiful, just like pulsating, glowing orb. And there I was as a child, and I'm laying there watching this. And then all of a sudden, it transformed into this hand. And this beautiful hand began to just float down slowly, and it just landed in my hand. I remember in my right hand. And it was almost like I absorbed this kind of energy. And I remember jumping up onto my feet and grabbing the rails of the crib and rattling these things and just laughing and laughing and laughing, like with total abandonment, only like a child can do. And I remember my parents waking up, and they were probably saying, he's probably having a dream or something, and they had gone back to sleep. But after my
So, before he moves on, I think like this seems like it was like preparing him almost for what's about to come. Nah, it's sad, right? It's sad that what Rob goes through. I'm sorry, we haven't even gotten there yet, but the point is this feels like a like preparation for Rob, like providing the amusement, the good feeling, the hand, and anyways, the comfort
or something, and they had gone back to sleep. But after my father passed away, never again would I sleep with my hands wide open and open to the world on my back. I would sleep on my stomach with my hands curled tightly under my chest, because I felt that hand, that light that came to me, was kind of like the only thing I had left to hold on to. And my life, just like any other child, went on, but I always had this sense of kind of like abandonment and wonder of what that light was that had come to me and where I was headed as a young person. And I really was kind of lost, particularly I remember even in my teenage years and throughout high school, I was always kind of like a loner, always in search of myself, wondering what it is that I wanted to become. And I was always very, very curious about that light that I had seen as a child. I was always asking my mother questions about God and our existence and why we were here. And then I was married and I had my first child with my wife, Melanie. And at, I think, age 18 months, we realized that there was something wrong with my daughter, Maria. And as time went on and genetic testing became available, we began to realize that she had a very, very rare neurological disorder called Rett syndrome. It's not that these children are retarded, it's that their brain stops wiring at around 18 months old. So Maria presents like she has severe autism, cerebral palsy, she can't feed herself, she's nonverbal, and she still has to walk with great assistance. So Maria is now 26 years old, and my wife and I had dedicated our lives to trying to, which we still do today, trying to find a cure. The seizures are pretty.
Just think about it, right? He lost his father and also has a daughter.
So Maria presents like she has severe autism, cerebral palsy.
The poor thing.
She can't feed herself. She's nonverbal, and she still has to walk with great assistance. So Maria is now 26 years old, and my wife and I had dedicated our lives to trying to, which we still do today, trying to find a cure. The seizures are pretty much.
He's a sweet man, right? I mean, that's like it's just thank whatever. say thank God, but you know, it's like, yeah, thank whatever that Rob is there for her, right? But this man is, you know, he's been put through the ringer. He has not had an easy life script, and look at him, he's holding strong. And this is just the beginning, my friends.
Under control now, but for years and years and years, we lived with a terrifying seizure disorder that there were sometimes months on end when my wife and I would be living in the hospital. The only way that they could stop Maria's seizures were with phenobarbital IVs that would literally put her in a coma for days. So it's been a very, very difficult journey through these past 26 years with her. And what happened was at age 56 years old, it was on January 26, 2016, I had been having all of this pain in my neck from sports injuries when I was younger. And it was determined that I had these bone spurs on my neck that were pinching my nerves and giving me all of this pain. So I had got all this testing done, and these bone spurs had to come out. So we found a doctor in Pittsburgh who does this special surgery called a foraminal anatomy. And he goes in through the front and he makes this very small cut in the neck and moves the esophagus aside and drills out these bone spurs. It's a very simple surgery. I was only in the hospital for one night. And then my wife drove me back to North Carolina, where I live now. But what happened was 3 nights later in my bed, at about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, I threw a blood clot. And we know now it went right into my widowmaker. All of a sudden, my wife is, turning on the lights, trying to figure out what's going on.
All right, I'm just going to back this up just a minute. Just listen.
For one night. And
one night. That's the moment I wanted to show. At least here in America, the medical system is insane, because all these major surgeries these days, you can go in and have like all this stuff, right? Major surgery, and you're lucky if you stay overnight. A lot of times they're discharging people the day of. And there's a clear reason for that, because their insurance isn't going to pay. If their insurance is going to pay, it'd be a different story. Or whatever the case may be, right? The point is the money is not there. So you can go in, have a procedure, and, well, what happened to Rob? You know, a few days later, he's having a blood clot back at home. And mind you, he went on a plane, right? He was in I would assume he went on a plane. I don't know if he said he flew back to North Carolina or whatever, but he went from Pittsburgh back home. So I would assume he went on a plane. And I am certainly not a doctor. I'm not a medical expert by any means, but if he did go on a plane, then the fact that the doctors did not tell him that that's not a good idea, because blood clots can occur because of that. Again, I'm very minimal knowledge in this department, but I do know that a lot of times, like if you get specific types of surgeries, and mind you, they were messing with his freaking neck and all this other stuff, right? Then he probably shouldn't have been flying, right? He probably shouldn't have been flying. That's the bottom line, okay? And clearly, no one told him that. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that's probably what happened, right? So the poor guy has to deal with even more bullshit. It's like one thing after another. It's just like the hits keep coming, baby. Welcome to the Matrix.
In the neck, and moves the esophagus aside and drills out these bone spurs. It's a very simple surgery. I was only in the hospital for one night. And then my wife drove me back to North Carolina, where I live now.
All right. Strike that from the record. He drove back. Sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, should have been listening more.
But what happened was, 3 nights later in my bed, at about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, I threw a blood clot. And we know now it went right into my widowmaker. All of a sudden, my wife is, turning on the lights, trying to figure out what's going on. I'm flopping around in the bed, screaming in pain. And then I passed out from the pain. My wife calls 911. The ambulance arrived. They rushed me to the hospital. Thank goodness the hospital is only like 3 miles from my house. But on the way, the ambulance driver knew I was having a massive heart attack. He calls it in. They get me into the ER. And they bring me into a room. The cardiologist was not in the hospital at the time. So a nurse comes in and they give me whatever the medicines they give you to thin the blood and to calm me down. And I'm still unconscious. And the nurse tells my wife, well, it looks like he's stable, so we're okay. Let's just wait for the cardiologist. And the minute she said that, all of a sudden, as my wife described it, it was kind of like a scene from the movie The Exorcist. It was almost as if somebody had grabbed me by my shirt and just pulled me forward off the gurney. Damn. And I sprung forward off the gurney from my waist up, and my eyes popped wide open, and I screamed out the name Frosty. And then I collapsed backward on the gurney and flatlined. Code Blue rang out through the hospital, and in rushed this team of doctors. They grabbed my wife, and before they took her out of the room, she said to Dr. Patel, the little Indian woman that saved me that night, she said, "We have a special needs child, and you have to save him because she cannot make it without him, and I can't do this alone." So they take my wife out of the room. My wife drops to her knees, began praying out loud to God to save me, and they began to work on me. For 20 minutes, I was dead. They did vigorous sternal rubs, multiple paddle shocks. 4 times they stuck that needle in my heart and injected epinephrine. They could not get me to come back. But something had compelled Dr. Patel to continue to work on me for some reason. I mean, I'm dead for 20 minutes. She should have called it long ago, should have been brain dead. But she continued to work on me until she obtained a very slight pulse. And when she did that, Dr. Bajwa came in, another doctor who is now a friend of mine, the cardiologist. He did a catheterization up through my thigh. He found the blockage in my widowmaker, inserted 2 stents, but it was too late. I had gone into cardiogenic shock. I was intubated, and I drifted into a 4-day coma.
4-day
The
coma.
neurologists were coming in and out of my room, my wife tells me, to see if I were brain dead. And my oldest brother drove down from Pittsburgh, and he called the local parish priest. The parish priest came, anointed me with oil and ashes in what's called extreme unction. In the Catholic faith, you get that one time to get you prepared to meet God. And so I was given my last rites.
That's all you get. That one, this is it. The priest is coming in to make sure that you fly back into the reincarnation soul trap.
To get you prepared to meet God. And so I was given my last rites, and on the 4th day, they came to my wife and they said, look, we can't wait any longer. We're going to take out the tubes and, we'll see what we have. He's probably a vegetable, but we'll see what happens. So obviously I started choking and I came out of it. And I remember coming out of recovery, the first person that came into my room was my wife, Melanie. She said I was speaking in this really high-pitched voice like a child. And I kept on saying, Melanie, you have to believe me. You have to believe me. It was Frosty. It was Frosty. He came to me. And she said, oh my God, that makes so much sense. She said, tell me exactly what Frosty said to you. And he said to me, I've made a big mess out of things, and you have to go back and help clean things up. But tell my family I'm in a good place.
I guess I should have saved this one for December. Okay, maybe I shouldn't make that kind of joke, but I'm sorry. I mean, it's nothing to laugh about, but no disrespect to Rob or his family or friends, or if anyone happens to run across this video. I mean, it's almost December.
She said, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Only my brother could have said that. He was always making a big mess out of things. And she said, you sprang up off the gurney and you screamed out Frosty's name before you flatlined. You had a massive heart attack. You've been out for 4 days. So to give you a little bit of a backstory, Frosty was my brother-in-law and was going through a very difficult period in his life. He was going through a divorce, and he was living in the upstairs bedroom of his parents' house. And unfortunately, 7 weeks before I died that night, Frosty had taken his own life. His mother had called me. It was about 5:30 in the morning, and she'd asked me to come to the house, to go up into his room and try to find a journal or a note or anything that would explain why he took his own life. So 7 times I went up into that room, picking through a rather gruesome scene, and finally I found a journal, and I had given it to the family. And, to this day, I wonder if Frosty had come to me to kind of like prepare me for what was yet to come. It had changed my perception of my religious belief system, because being raised Catholic, and I know those rules have changed now, but at the time, being raised Catholic, we were taught that taking one's life was a mortal sin. You went straight to hell. But here Frosty came to me just as clearly as I'm speaking to you and told me that he was in a good place. So that was the first time in my life that there was this huge paradigm shift in my belief system. And then the second day that I came out of coma, it was so extraordinary, because there I was, my arms were still paralyzed, and this beautiful little Indian woman came up to my bed and she said, hey, I'm Dr. Patel, and I'm the one that was working on you that night. And she began to tell me how many times she almost lost me and all the things that she had gone through. And all of a sudden, it got very personal. She began to talk about her father, which I thought was odd. And she began to cry, and she was telling me about her father. And she said, Rob, my father and I were extremely close, and all he lived for was to see my first child. But 6 months before my child was born, my father died suddenly of a brain aneurysm.
Well, what a surprise. The Matrix sets it up that all he wanted to do, the father, of the doctor, all the father wanted to do was be able to live to see the grandchild. And doesn't surprise me that the Matrix yanks that right out of his hands, right? Yeah, sure. A little goodbye present. I mean, like this, look, it sounds harsh because it is harsh. Just calling it out for what it is. Like, his one last wish or whatever before he is on his way. Just want to see my grandchild. Nope. Access denied. Sorry.
My father and I were extremely close, and all he lived for was to see my first child. But 6 months before my child was born, my father died suddenly of a brain aneurysm. And she said, I'm a Hindu. I've been always very, very spiritual. And ever since that happened, I've been very bitter. I've kind of lost my sense of spirituality. But seeing you here alive.
See, even the doctor who's talking to Rob is acknowledging that she's been really bitter about that ever since in a spiritual way. I mean, seriously, what does that tell you? I mean, but yet, just think about it. Just pause for a minute and think about the scenario that's developing here. Rob's going through all his life script mess. It's intersecting with Dr. Patel and Dr. Patel's father and Dr. Patel's future child. The father is his last wishes, basically, his final kind of hopes is to be able to see his grandchild. But he dies. And Dr. Patel is holding a grudge. But lo and behold, sometime later, she just happens to be working on Rob, where their lives intersect within the Matrix system, and Rob's experience is a byproduct of her experience to ease the pain, to make things a little better. This is high-level deception at its finest, crossing between different life scripts. It's nuts. It's nuts. It's very subtle, but it's clear, too, like when you can see right through the bullshit. And this is a great example of it.
Lost my sense of spirituality. But seeing you here alive, maybe, just maybe, there's something out there. Because you shouldn't be here. And as she was telling me this, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like the puzzle unscrambled, and there it was. Because besides Frosty coming to me, there was another male spirit that had entered the room while she was working on me, and I could hear this voice
I wonder who it could be.
Over and over again saying the same thing. Keep working on him. Don't give up. You can save him. And then it hit me. It was her father speaking through me, encouraging her to continue to work on me. There's no reason in the world why she should have continued working on me for 20 minutes. I was long gone, but something compelled her to keep working on me.
Okay. So there it is, right? The two, exactly as Jose put in the chat on YouTube. He says they're all one big, quote, soul family. Exactly. Their lives are intersecting. Like, the key thing with the soul group, the soul family, however you want to frame it, it's the same thing, right? The key thing is there are minor and major characters involved, right? So you have kind of like a core, usually like a core individual or, small group that you continually and likely reincarnate with on the regular. And there could be some gaps in between there, but then there's like side characters, right? It's like the extras in the movie, extras in the play. And this is a great example of it, right? I mean, it's freaking nuts, but it's so glaringly obvious when you see it. And it's these types of moments that really drive the soul trap home and show that the level of deception that things go. I was listening to, very briefly, and I meant to cover, there's a channel called, I think, 434 or 432 Hertz or something like that. And they did some soul trap content. They were at least going over it at some point, and then did basically a reversal on it. And I was listening to it, blown away, like with the excuses, like all of the, like, just like really just bad misdirection. And I don't know. I mean, and it's just like moments like these really drive it home. And I'm not trying to talk bad about any channel. I was just listening to it, and I meant to actually do a response video to it earlier this year, and it never happened, but it's on my list now. We'll go over that at some point. But I don't think a lot of people realize how deep this stuff goes, and how this is the point I was trying to make. I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but what they were saying is that, you know, this place it's very rudimentary, right? It's not well thought out. You know, it's haphazardly put together, but it's not. It is not. It is very well thought out, very subtle, and it takes a monumental amount of effort to deconstruct it in a lifetime. That's the key thing. You have to be able to deconstruct this in a lifetime and use it to your advantage to liberate yourself, right? It's really deep stuff, and it takes time. And we're extremely fortunate that we chose this incarnation in this moment to be here. It's not an accident. All of us here today who are, or whether you have kind of gotten to the point where you see through all the bullshit and that, you know, this is really one big fat deception, or if you're kind of on the fence or otherwise new to the concept, there's a reason we're here. There's a reason why we pick this moment in time to reincarnate and have access to this information. I'm convinced of it. I am. It's too perfect to be able to have access to everything that we do and identify with pure data, patterns upon patterns upon patterns, and be able to at least see a general makeup of the deception being run on us. And in my opinion, it leads one direction only, liberation. But with that comes like educating yourself about what's going on here and getting to the point of that firm inner knowing. I know I talk about it a lot, and I'm going to stop ranting, but the reason why I bring that up a lot is because I think it's important. I think it's really, really important to get to the point of that firm inner knowing so that you know deep within that your plan is protecting yourself, sovereignty, liberation. I'm not going to go through the whole spiel. But anyways, let's move on.
It was just this voice, this continuing voice in the background, repeating those same words over and over and over again. And, you know, in that moment, I didn't have the courage to tell her that it was her father speaking through me, that was the one next to her telling her to continue to try to save me. It was a year later when I had come back and met her in the hospital cafeteria that I told her about that experience. So after I had been released from the hospital, I went into rehab, and they had told me that I could not survive without a heart transplant. My heart was completely destroyed. So before I was released from the hospital, they had fitted me in this defibrillator vest that looked like a policeman's bulletproof vest that they would wear. And every time my heart would fail, which was often, of course, this thing would, shock me back to life. You talk about PTSD, right? Because this thing was always shocking me back. And then the other thing that they did to me, because my heart was so weak, is that they inserted a port in my chest. It was dripping this medicine on my heart every 60 seconds called milrinone. It makes the heart pump, but it starts the clock ticking right away, and it wears the heart out very, very fast. But I could not get a heart. Hearts are in short supply. So I went everywhere to try to get a heart. I went everywhere in North Carolina, the clinics here, and what they had to offer me were terrible alternatives. So I was very, very desperate and depressed, and I was about to give up. And it turns out that my employer, who I work for, he helped me to get into the University of Chicago Medicine. So I'm going through this whole process of getting a heart and going through all of these different tests, and I'm getting weaker and weaker and weaker through the process. And I'm about 174 pounds, and I had atrophied down to like 132 pounds. I was a skeleton of a human being, and lo and behold, in the last set of tests, they found out that I had prostate cancer.
Can you believe this?
It was a shock.
Can you believe this? As if the craziness can't get any crazier. This man is a freaking warrior of epic proportions. It's just, I know. Dolphin's like, what? City's like, what? WTF? I mean, seriously, it's just the hits keep coming. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Thank you, Knack, for your very kind super chat. I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you. It's like
insane. 132 pounds. I was a skeleton of a human being, and lo and behold, in the last set of tests, they found out that I had prostate cancer. It was a shock. Dr. Uriel came into my room. He brought like 5-6 doctors with him because he needed emotional support, I guess. And he came into my room and he told me, he said, "Rob, I'm sorry, but we found prostate cancer in you, and I have to take you off the transplant list. And the only thing that we can do for you now is we're going to have to take the prostate out and wait like 6 months to make sure you're cancer free."
Unreal.
So once again, I find myself in this position where I'm abandoned by God and I'm not going to make it. And I never forget, I was in my room and I was on the 8th floor of the University of Chicago Medicine, and I had this view of Lake Michigan. It was 10 o'clock at night or something, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this storm whips off the lake, and these heavy sheets of rain start slamming against the window, and lightning like I've never seen it. And when you're on the 8th floor next to the Lake Michigan, it's like you're in the middle of the ocean, So I started to get really scared, and I'm very, very weak. And all of a sudden, it was kind of like this dark entity had entered the room. I felt as if something was trying to weaken me. I was being drugged into this darkness,
As if it couldn't compound itself any further. As if Rob has not been through enough. Boom, boom. It's like this man, I'm telling this true essence being is a warrior of epic proportions.
I was a magnet dragging all of this fear, everything that I ever feared, and every mistake that I'd ever made in my life. All of these things were flashing before me, and I felt myself getting weaker and weaker and weaker. I had an encounter when I was a child of a boy that had a very deformed face when I was walking through the mall with my mother shopping. And I remember meeting this child who had this deformed face from thalidomide when he was a child. And I was face to face with this boy, and I remember being so terrified, and I couldn't even talk. And that boy had felt so bad, and his mother grabbed him and pulled him away and said, "Let's just go home." And that memory had haunted me my whole life, that I had done something wrong to that little boy.
Okay, hold that thought, because, right, he's this memory haunted him his entire life about how he reacted to a boy who had a deformed face, right? Just think about that, right? Now, mind you, it's put into more context and understanding for Rob, I would say, because of his daughter, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to see the correlation, right? But even that aside, think about the situation that he's in. He's gone through all this. He's dealing with something is trying to weaken him. And lo and behold, the first thing that is going through his mind, courtesy of the Matrix, is that moment that he regrets from when he was young. Okay? This is the fear, guilt, shame Matrix rearing its ugly head.
And I remember when that rain and that lightning was, flashing and all of that was going on in that room, it was kind of like this little boy's face had kind of like a hologram had pushed through that window, and even he was facing me. Look what you had done to me. It was you that made me feel so bad about myself. All those things were happening and raging, and all of a sudden my heart had gone into tachycardia. Tachycardia is when the heart goes into this erratic rhythm, and the heart already weakened, and I was barely alive as it was. And there goes my heart again. It's in this erratic rhythm. But I just released myself. I remember crying out, "Do with me what you will." And in that moment, I found myself standing in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, key moment. Do with me what you will. So it's build up, build up, build up, build up from that moment. Everything going on with his life, but especially that moment with the way he reacted. And do with me what you will. Just completely releasing himself voluntarily to the Matrix. And then, boom, change of scenery.
Myself. I remember crying out, "Do with me what you will." And in that moment, I found myself standing in the middle of nowhere. It was inexplicable. I thought to myself, how can this be happening? I found myself inside this timeless place, kind of like this vacuum of sorts. And I think the best way to try to explain this, it's kind of like when you're flying on an airplane, you're looking out an airplane window and it's clear blue sky, you could see everything, but you're really seeing nothing. And that's what it was like. And yet it was as if I was connected to the vast wisdom of the universe, all of it without words. It was almost as if the grains of my being were made of sand, and somebody picked me up and just threw the grains of my being into this wind and scattered me across this infinite, timeless expanse.
Okay, and the reason for that is because he allowed it. He opened himself up to have that situation play out. He gave permission to the Matrix to, hey, do what you got to do. His words,
there I
not
was,
mine.
standing there, and I could see myself down in my hospital bed in my green hospital gown, connected to the heart pump, keeping me alive, with the IV bags coming out of me. And yet at the same time, I could see this hologram of my body standing in the middle of nowhere in the same hospital gown, but I was whole. And I remember feeling disappointed because I did not see any divine being. My parents didn't come to meet me. I didn't hear any music. There were no angels. But what did happen was God expressed concepts upon me that I wholly understood in that place. Concepts like, I am omnipotent. This is the divine source. I am the power behind all things. This is your real identity. Those were the concepts that were expressed to me. And I knew in that moment that somehow that veil had been pulled back and I was in some kind of place that I call them the ethereal, connected to the vast wisdom of the universe, all of it without words.
Okay, so you have to remember that he voluntarily gave himself up, right? Now, there's going to be some very, very interesting moments, as still much to come as we move along. But this is a thing that happens on the regular with individuals who basically hand themselves over, or are, they're always handing themselves over in some form. But what we get is like, oh, like we're all one, or that you're connected, or that you have access to every bit of information possible, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff, right? Same thing over and over. A very, very obvious data point. But there's conditions that kind of come along with that. And it's usually a result, if not always a result. I can't say definitively, but I would say almost always it's related to someone who is clearly giving themselves up. And what do we see in NDEs all the time? They're giving themselves over. And a lot of times it has to do with belief systems that they had already held previously on Earth in this current lifetime. And those things are a catalyst for how things will play out moving forward. Now, add to the mix, taking those belief systems and just handing yourself over on a silver platter to the parasitic control system, well, it is going to give this illusion within the confines of how the Matrix wants you to see it, wants you to feel. If that makes any sense. It's really crazy how deep this stuff goes, but it's like they're throwing Rob a bone. They're throwing a lot of these NDEers a bone to make them feel a certain way. But at the same time, there's still limitations. There's still something above Rob. There's still something above all the other experiencers that we see video after video after video. It's the same script. A little different, but the same key components over and over and over again.
And this peace came on me that is just inexplicable. And there I was. And it was kind of like communication was telepathic and synchronistic. If I wanted to know the answer to anything, all I had to do was think about it. And it was kind of like it was felt and then absorbed. And with each insight revealed, I thought,
I mean, seriously, how many times have you heard this statement?
Felt and then absorbed. Was telepathic and synchronistic. If I wanted to know the answer to anything, all I had to do was think about it.
If I wanted to know the answer to anything, all I had to do was think about it. This is like a very, very, very common narrative out there with NDEs. See it a lot. But what happens? They come back and they're interfered with. Most of the time by attachments that are here on Earth. But they're so far along in the cycle, it doesn't even matter at that point. They've already, willingly bridged the belief systems on Earth to the astral realm, the etheric realm, whatever you want to call it. The belief in exterior gurus, we can call it God, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, etc.
And it was kind of like it was felt and then absorbed. And with each insight revealed, I thought, wow, this is how it works. Of course, it's really, really simple. And it was like these mathematical equations were just hanging all around me. And I thought, the universe, the way it works, it's so elegant and simple. It's only humans that have made it so difficult to understand. And I knew everything in that place. And it was just beautiful to be floating around, seeing all of this, And then it's very difficult to explain this piece, but I'm going to try to articulate it. It was then that I became part of and saw this gigantic web made of twinkling lights. The only way that I can explain this web and what it looked like is that it looked like it was made of trillions and trillions of neurons. And this web just seemed to extend out into infinity. And I was part of it. It was made of all of these sparks of light or twinkling lights. And I knew in that moment that each one of these lights that was inside the nucleus represented a life. And I was told in that place that that cork was how God creates. And I knew that God, love, and light were one. And these quarks are the smallest building blocks of matter. And quarks combine to create infinite possibilities in the universe. They could become a tree, a person, a dog, or a planet.
Okay, so just have to pause it there. Now, this kind of, in my opinion, continues to confirm my thoughts about, like, this. What we're seeing is matrix construction, right? A matrix creations of some, like, just imagine you have what Rob is describing, you know, in a general way, right? Well, let's not just say that, you know, it's 100% truth, but let's just say that you roll up to the matrix, you knock on the gate, and you say, hey, I want to go and experience this matrix, right? Which the Earth realm is contained within it, along with a number of astral realms and the sensory experience, blah, 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 blah. All right. You come in. There has to be a process where we end up having a different makeup attached to us, like a different part of another's creation, and we can call them etheric overlays, whatever you want to call it. It's basically like a what's a good word to put for it? I mean, I don't even like etheric overlays and stuff like that. I mean, it's almost like a ankle monitor, right? An ankle bracelet that people who are, you know, in prison or out on bail or something, like they need that to be kept track of. And I think it's probably something like that. And it's almost like your essence is twisted and probably portions of it tossed to the side and separated from your essence. Like it's basically fragmented, condensed down, and then has a certain set of parameters and rules that you can act out or abide by while you're in this creation. And, you know, when I say this, I refer to the overall matrix system, not just Earth. I mean, I always have to say that because it's not just here. Like this system runs deep. We don't know how deep, but we know it's pretty damn complex, right? It involves many, many different realms. Some, you know, something like the Earth realm, and then you have something like the astral realms, right? And who knows? Probably many other material type realms. We don't know, but we do know that there's the Earth realm, which is the material realm, and we do know that there are many, 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 many astral, etheric realms, whatever you want to call them. And it seems like everyone is just la, 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 you know, spinning around, not thinking twice, and just going along with the show. And that leads to the memory wipe situation, right? But there has to be something else attached to us or connected to us that keeps us out of the loop, keeps us out of becoming better informed about what we're doing. Because if you remember, Rob's saying, hey, I have all the answers to every question, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you can get all the answers to every question, why are like why is it always so limited, right? And then to go a step further, it's not just limited, but it's forgotten. We've had open admission after open admission after open admission about the memory wipe, right? Someone comes back here, and for whatever reason, they forget the answers to the universe. They forget the answers to the deep questions that everybody wants to know. Why is that? Because it's set up that way. It's just the way the system works. And we have come in here for whatever period of time and probably more than likely wanted to experience what it was like to not be eternal and not have access to nonstop creative abilities and perception and blah, blah, blah. And we get lost. That's it. We've gotten lost. We've lost ourselves. And all we need to do is regain ourselves and say enough is enough. Anyways, rant over.
Abilities in the universe. They could become a tree, a person, a dog, or a planet. And then it hit me. God uses light to create, transform, and heal us. So, stripped down to our essence, we're made of light. Everything is made of light.
Only when
I
you're
knew
in the
in
Matrix.
that place we're all made of the same stuff, whether it's animate or inanimate objects. We're all connected. We're all one. That was so amazing to me, to be connected to everything. And I thought, if I hurt myself, I hurt everything connected to me. But if I love, the light will spread, illuminating the path for others. And it was there that I realized that loneliness is just an illusion, even here in the physical, temporal world.
Okay, so interesting, right? Like some of the bits of information that come back are like the narrative that we are all one. Now, it's so consistent that we are connected, we are all one, not even we are connected, but like we're all one, right? Like that's like the driving narrative we see over and over and over again. And it was Dan a while back that got me thinking more about that. And from Overwatch channel, by the way, check them out. Overwatch Project and overwatchchannel.com or overwatchproject.com, Overwatch channel on YouTube. Anyways, he got me thinking more about that. And it's such a pervasive narrative that it could be perceived as true because we're still under the umbrella of the Matrix systems, right? Again, the whole thing, not just Earth, goes beyond that. So the astral realms, etc., right? But it's still within the umbrella of whatever this whole system is, however deep it all goes. And there is a connection in there because we are all etherically connected within it. But the question is, what's beyond this, right? What's beyond all this? We have to think bigger, much bigger, and confront and be honest with ourselves that we just don't know. And that's why seeking liberation with a sovereign intention seems to be the only possible way to direct yourself, because other than that, it seems like this place is just so riddled. This matrix system is so riddled with potential landmines and distractions and feel-good moments that it's very simple to trick us. But that's probably because we have that connection within the system and everybody else is feeling that connection. Get what I'm saying? It's really, it goes deep when you start thinking like that. And I'm not saying that I have the answer. All I'm saying is why not test out the sovereign intention, right? shielding yourself, creating your own realm, using your intention to fully leave the system and just see what happens. That's it. That's it. And, and if I'm wrong, if we're all wrong, then, hey, let's go, we'll go fly down the tunnel into the light and have a big party. All right. But until then, until a long while occurs and we've had each time privately as an individual in the own realm of our own making, that's impenetrable and incapable of being interfered with, so that we can make 100% lucid decision on how we move forward. It seems ridiculous to just blindly believe that this whole thing is as advertised, when all we see is endless deception by this crackpot system. And it doesn't just stop here. It goes way out there. All right. So there are some, like the video I was talking about earlier, the 434, they were saying, oh, well, or 432, they were saying, oh, well, if it was a soul trap, why would they have psychedelics on Earth? Because they're a distraction. You know how many people, we were just talking about this in a voice chat the other night. You know how many people think that, when they're on DMT or ayahuasca or something like that, that they'll literally say that the machine elves are gods, that they're a god, or that whatever, you pick it, that's some weird, creepy ass, obviously holographic being or program is God, is the creator, is source. It happens all the time. You can go look up these types of experiences for yourself. So to me, the pipeline with psychedelics that are available here on Earth don't mean anything if they're going to result in someone having that type of thought or perception the rest of their lives, right? What does that do? It's just going to throw them right back in it, right? Now, they can be useful, and I'm not condoning or endorsing or anything like that. They can be helpful for some trying to wake up. And again, I don't, no suggestion or hint whatsoever that anyone should do anything like that. But it does open up someone that may need or require that maybe is having trouble getting to it through things like meditation or lucid dreaming practice or astral projection, practice, things like that, right? But in the end, meditation practice, like a good, consistent daily spiritual practice that is helping expand your essence is a good thing. But that doesn't come without warnings. And that was another thing we were talking about in the members voice chat is, or I think it was, yeah. I think it was in the members voice chat. We were talking about how, something I've discussed on the channel that is amazing to me. And everyone really needs to let this sink in. Especially like even if you're just like looking at meditation on a small level, or perhaps you're already someone who meditates every day. Meditation is great, but the funny thing is that all these channels out there, all these books, all these gurus, how many of them tell you that you can have bad experiences with meditation, right? You can get attacked and have all sorts of crazy shit happen with meditation. Now, with that being said, when you're kind of more in tune with what's going on and are aware of how to protect yourself, which is easy with your intention, setting up your own ritual to protect yourself, right? Things like that work. They work, but they're never talked about. Never. It's insanity. So anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't even know how I went down this road, but I did. And so, look, there are many, many benefits, but at the same time, it can catapult someone in their awakening process by implementing a meditation practice. And it's not always going to be, rainbows, unicorns, pixie dust, fairy dust, all that stuff. It's just not going to be like that, right? There's going to be times when you need to come face to face with you. You need to come face to face with possible outside interference and be aware of how to protect yourself. And it's just your intention, right? Don't let it consume you. Don't let it eat you alive. Don't let one bad experience stop you from keeping a daily practice. Or even if you have to take a little break for a few days, don't let it lapse too long, because sometimes we can let it go and not continue. And I've done that before, right? I mean, I've had some really dark experiences multiple days in a row. And one of them was over a week, and I was still meditating, and I wasn't, I admittedly will say here that like I wasn't protecting myself the way I should be, but that's because no one taught me. No one told me the power of my intention. I was going in blind. All right. So, just keep that in the back of your head. That's all. All right. Rant 2.0 over.
It was there that I realized that loneliness is just an illusion, even here in the physical, temporal world. How can we be lonely when we're connected to everything? But of course, we can't see that in the physical realm. And I began to see nurses coming in and out of patients' rooms. And I found it curious that I was only seeing nurses that I had made negative assumptions about. I had thought that I had evolved past judgment from all the things that I've been through in my life. But there I was, seeing these nurses, and all of a sudden, their lives were shown to me like on multiple television screens. And their lives were being shown to me in a regression of events. I guess the best way to explain this is how a cartoonist makes cartoons. A cartoonist will draw every movement of a character and then flip those pages at high speed to create movement. And that's what it was like. So their lives were going backwards in this regression of events. And every time something happened, like a violent event or abuse or a watershed event in their lives, circumstances out of their control, an accident or a bad personal choice, that film would stop for a millisecond to give me a picture of what had happened in that person's life. And I realized that it was painting a portrait of what that person had become and why. And I remember standing there looking at this thinking, how could I have ever judged these people so harshly? And then I was giving a life review of my own life, the things that I was most ashamed of and the mistakes that I have made. And let me tell you, having a special needs child and thinking about my own mistakes, heavy burdens that I had to carry around. There were times in Maria's darkest times where I had prayed for God to take her, both for her to stop the suffering and selfishly for me and my wife.
See, like this is not, that's not selfishness, right? If Marie is suffering and you have a child suffering, what, like, can we just be honest with, at least with the insanity in the US and most of the world, okay? Let's just call it what it is, right? Extreme suffering, especially in the United States, it's so bad to the point that our system will keep people alive and kicking who are having, like, they're hanging on by a thread, or their quality of life is close to nothing, right? It is an atrocity. It's disgusting. There is no excuse for it. And It goes to the whole Loosh thing. Why? How can this continue to go on? But it does. It does. We have a society that treats our pets better than it does human beings, right? We will put down our cats. We will put down our dogs. We will put down our pets when they are suffering and having trouble. We won't let them go and just continue to suffer day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, if they are having true trouble to the point where their quality of life is zero or close to zero. But no, humans, no. It's another story. It's insane. It's insane. And I've seen, two people I care about greatly who suffered and had their lives extended because of the modern systems that are implemented in the U.S. And it's a travesty. All right. It's a travesty. All right. And it's like that in many, many places around the world. So, Rob, if you happen to be listening, don't let these thoughts bother you. I know it's easier said than done, but don't let these thoughts bother you, my friend. It's perfectly normal to feel that way on both ends of the spectrum, both for your daughter and yourself and your family. Things get difficult, and it becomes a quality of life issue. All right? So, Rob, please don't ever blame yourself, okay? Please. We have a barbaric, insane system, and it has thrown a wrench into you and your family, and it becomes a moral and ethical issue, but it also should be a judgment call from you, from your wife, on what is best for your daughter, or what is best for you as a guardian, your family as a guardian. What's better for your daughter? And it's fucking nuts. It's insane. All right? Excuse my language, but it's nuts. All right? It's off the charts. Ridiculous. All right, I'm done.
And let me tell you, having a special needs child and thinking about my own mistakes, heavy burdens that I had to carry around. There were times in Maria's darkest times where I had prayed for God to take her, both for her to stop the suffering and selfishly for me and my wife. And these were heavy things that I had to carry around. And then I forgave myself. And in that moment of forgiveness, there came Maria. Here she was, standing in the middle of nowhere. She came out of that web where we were all connected, and she's standing there, perfect and whole. And she had this light coming through her eyes. It's not the kind of light we see in the natural world. It was kind of like that light that I saw in my crib. It was that light that animates all life, that spiritual light. And there she was, standing in the middle of nowhere. She wasn't wringing her hands. She was perfect and whole, beautiful. In the ethereal, there was no language. Like I said, it was kind of like communication, was kind of like telepathic and synchronistic. And I started having a conversation with her in this unspoken language. And I said to her, Maria, I've never heard your voice. I don't know what your personality's like. I've never heard you say, I love you, Daddy. Your mother and I have taken you everywhere, try to find a cure. We don't know what to do for you anymore. When you're suffering, when you're having seizures. Wow. I said, just tell me what to do. And in that unspoken language, she said 3 words to me that transformed my life. She said, just love me. And when she said, just love me, I cried out in that ethereal space. And I said, I never want to leave this place.
Rob's a good man. He's a good man. Make me freaking cry. Just covering stuff like this really messes with my head, right? Because we have the empathy, the compassion, the real connection, the human component with Rob and his daughter and his wife and his family. And the message he's given is just love me. Now, something I'll add is that I like, for instance, like when my grandmother and when my father were dying and they had, really messed up, Alzheimer's and a very rare accelerated brain disease, right? So, and I know some of you out there can relate. I know PK out there, if you're listening, brother, heart goes out to you too. And anyone else who may be confronted with something like dementia and Alzheimer's and stuff like that, like, there is some sort of connection that we can make. And it was happening to me, not on a major scale all the time, although there were definitely moments where I was connecting with my grandmother and especially my father during meditation and OBE practice, a number of years ago. Okay, and so Rob's having this experience in getting a connection from his daughter, right? And but like he's saying, it's very simple, right? Just love me. Just love me. Sometimes, like, deciphering where the connection's coming from isn't all that easy. Especially when you don't know, or when you're confused, or when you're trying to make sense of certain things, and then you also have like a parent or a child or someone going through a rough time, but they're incapable of speaking, right? But it really drives home the lengths that this system will go. Okay? That's the bottom line. And I hate even saying it in this context because Rob's a warrior, right? Rob is doing what's best for himself, his family, his daughter. And my heart goes out to him. I don't even know what kind of point beyond this I was trying to make, but it's like the point is we can have a connection even when our loved ones have something like a dementia, Alzheimer's, or like Rob's dealing with his daughter, Rett syndrome, right? It's wild, but there is connection, but it's being able to like tune into the receiver and have like a strong knowing every time about who's on the other end is something else entirely, if that makes sense.
And I said, I never want to leave this place. And When I cried out into that space, I heard my own voice echo back to me. I never want to leave this place. And it was then that I found myself back in my hospital bed. And there I was, laying there in my broken body, trying to remember what happened. I had no pain in the ethereal. I didn't feel anything there except that peace and love and wholeness. But when I came back into my body, I had that sense, of course, I could hear the new pulse pumping my heart, and had the same old pain and suffering that I had been going through. But when that experience had ended and I was laying there in my bed trying to grapple with what happened, most of those details that I had remembered in that ethereal space were already leaving me. I don't know how, by some spiritual osmosis, that I knew everything when I was there, and then here I am back in my broken, atrophied body, and I couldn't remember details. But I never forget thinking, I really don't care.
Okay, so see, he can't remember details. Really important moment here.
Remembered in that ethereal space were already leaving me.
They were already leaving me. So see the disconnection, and this happens all the time. The memory wipe is real. The memory wipe happens even in near-death experiences, and it's just something that's completely overlooked, no big deal, and it always has to do with something important. Why is that? Because it's all part of the game. It's all part of the parasitic mess that we're dealing with. And some people are like, oh, we'll just explain it away, no big deal. You know, there's a reason for it, and we're just going to have to trust everything, and that's it. No. How come it's so consistent with this memory wipe, with the memory blockage? How come we don't even have recall for our previous life? And even if you do have some recall for a lifetime here or there in the past is nothing on the grand scale, considering you an eternal being. And anyone, and I mean anyone, who will sit there and say that they have full recall of every single minute of every single day of every single lifetime, do not believe them. They are completely full of crap. There was one individual who made such claims in my comment section. I lit him up. He's full of crap. All right. Those people don't exist. Those true essence beings do not exist. Okay. And even if they did, are you going to bank on let's just say even 100, 200 individuals, 1,000 individuals? You're going to bank on them when everything else slaps you in the face with the data and says otherwise? I mean, you got to go with logical, consistent patterns, not crazy wackiness, outrageous claims that cannot be taken into account with some sort of pattern, right? There has to be a level-headed approach when diving into this topic, or any topic, right? You can't just buy into anything. The reptilians and this and that, look, all that stuff may be going on, but guess what? It doesn't appear in almost everything, right? It just doesn't. It just doesn't. So if it doesn't appear, then maybe there's some perhaps motive behind, whether someone wants to be a wannabe guru, someone wants to sell DVDs or books, or whatever the case may be. And then there's plenty of people that sell books and DVDs and stream accounts and memberships and stuff like that, well, they're doing what they do, right? But when someone is actively misleading them, that's where I have a problem. When it flies in the face of consistent data patterns, consistent like data points across the board. And it's just like, oh, well, hey, I escaped my pod, before I should have. And I went against the grain and, hey, I'm Superman. And I'm coming down to Earth. And then I'm going to throw all my documents in the fire. And then go to DMV, and then they're just magically going to have everything. Some of you maybe want to know what I'm talking about. I am so sick of the grifting bullshitters. I've had it. And they're endless. I mean, seriously, there's a dividing line between those that want the sci-fi hopped up, Hollywood narratives, and those who want down-to-earth, true, consistent, tested, approved research that has something to back it up. Not just some person on a camera, just saying it and just buying it point blank, right? Let's just get real, okay? I'm sorry. I have a very low threshold for bullshit. Extremely low threshold, okay? So, anyways, even like even the narrative, one last thing, right? Even the thing with the narratives with alien abductions, right? There's something there. Don't get me wrong. There's something there. And I don't like calling them aliens. Let's just say whatever. Entity abductions, right? Or entity experiences that are, would fall under the abduction category. There's absolutely something there. But there's a lot of craziness, right? There's a lot of muddied waters. There's a whole psyop going on just with the topic of aliens and alien abductions alone. But, people see the white light, right? They see the tunnel. They could end up in the corner of their room, right? There's a lot of wild stuff that happens that correlate and connect with other types of experiencer cases. So the point is there's something there. Now, is it going to be the most reliable? Not necessarily, but the point is there's a connection. Also, okay, I'll just leave it there. I'll leave it there. Ranting too much.
I don't know how by some spiritual osmosis that I knew everything when I was there. And then here I am back in my broken, atrophied body, and I couldn't remember details. But I never forget thinking, I really don't care now if I get a heart. I could care less. I wanted to be back there, connected to everything, in that beautiful love and light of God. I wanted to see my daughter whole again and perfect, and I could have cared less. But I knew, too, that I was sent back for a reason. I had to help get my daughter and my wife safely to the other side. But when that experience had ended and I was laying there in my bed, I remember wondering why this all happened to me. My life had flashed before me from the time that my father died. The glowing orb came to me in the crib, Maria's birth, having a massive heart attack, dying, almost making it to transplant. All these things happening to me, seeing my daughter perfect and whole in the spiritual realm, finally convinced that God did exist. And there I was, and I'm asking myself these questions. And much like I heard Frosty's voice, and much like I had those imprints of spirit telling me, those concepts, I am omnipotent, this is your real identity, all those things that were happening to me, I had asked the question, why am I here? And there was that voice again. I heard one word: testify.
Testify.
And
make sure that information gets back on Earth. That's the Matrix Marketing Department. Rearing its ugly head yet again.
Voice again. I heard one word: testify. And it was shortly after that my heart came and I was transplanted. I made medical history twice, actually. I made medical history with the new pulse, and I made medical history with creating a new category for men with prostate cancer to get transplanted, because what happened is that eventually my doctor was able to get an exception from the government to transplant me, with the agreement that the prostate would be taken out after my heart transplant. So I signed the paperwork to get that done, and I was transplanted. But when you're transplanted, you have to live near the hospital for a year because they're responsible for your health. You have to have testing almost every week because the heart is very, very susceptible to rejection or infection. So when I was in Chicago, living in that apartment by myself for a year, of course my wife would come when she could to visit me. But I had gone through this really bad depression because here I was, back in this physical world, this temporal world, and I was constantly grappling with the beauty and the love and the light and being connected to everything in that spiritual realm and seeing my daughter perfect and whole. And then here I am back in this world. And even though I knew I had a mission, it was very, very difficult for me. And I began.
Even though I knew I had a mission, mind you, he's transcended the medical norms 2 times over. I mean, if there couldn't be a Matrix marketing department moment personified, it's what we're listening to right now. and no offense, Rob. Again, if you're listening, no offense. Just
realm and seeing my daughter perfect and whole. And then here I am back in this world. And even though I knew I had a mission, it was very, very difficult for me. And I began this process of meditating every morning and trying to metaphorically, so to speak, climb that ladder back up into that ethereal place, that spiritual realm, and become connected to everything. And every morning I would fail miserably. I would come like crashing down, and I was getting more and more depressed. But one day my boss called me. He said, "Hey, I want to come over with my pastor, this guy, Pastor Man, and talk to you."
Pastor Man. Pastor Man. The big man in charge. 10% for the big guy.
He said, "Hey, I want to come over with my pastor, this guy, Pastor Man, and talk to you." So he came over one Sunday, and I was sitting outside on the porch, I'll never forget. And this Chinese man comes running up the porch, He sits down beside me, and I felt very safe in that moment because I was able to talk to this man about things that I hadn't been able to talk to anybody about. And I began to tell him that I felt really, really guilty. That was part of my depression. I felt guilty for getting a heart. There were people on my floor that had passed away and didn't get a heart, people younger than me. I didn't want to be here. I wanted to be back in that spiritual realm, and yet I knew I had to take care of my family, and was going through a very difficult period. And the most important thing I expressed to him was, I told him, I said, Pastor Man, I don't know where I belong. And he said to me, "You don't know where you belong because you got too fat, having been fed too much in the spiritual realm." And he said, "To get skinny again, I want you to give back to God while you're here on earth by serving others and learning to see the divine in everything, because you don't have to leave the earth to experience the divine." And it hit me in that moment what he was saying. So after he left, I went for a walk. And when I was younger, I used to walk through the woods when I was jogging, and I used to pull leaves off a tree.
Okay. So I do need to take a break. Got the doggos. So we're going to take about, it shouldn't be more than 5 minutes. I think we'll be all right. So hang in there with me. And if I go over a minute or so, it won't be much. But so just assume 5-6 minutes from now, take a stretch break, go grab some water, do what you got to do. And we'll meet back here in about 5 minutes, my friends. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And here, enjoy a nice cover song. Oh, that's not the song. That's not the song. This is it, Like a Rock. The theme song of the channel. You're all warriors.
Felt like a million. I felt like number one. The height of summer. I never felt that strong. Like a rock. And I was 18. I didn't have a care. Working for peanuts, not a dime to spare. But I was thin, saw it everywhere, like a rock. My hands were steady, my eyes were clear and bright. My walk had purpose, my steps were quick and light. And I held firmly to what I felt was right, like a rock. Like a rock. I was strong as I could be, like a rock. Nothing ever got to me, like a rock. I was something to see, like a rock. And I stood arrow straight, unencumbered by the weight of all these hustlers and their schemes. I stood proud, stood tall, high above it all. I still believed in my dreams. 20 years now, where'd they go? 20 years, I just don't know. I sit and I wonder sometimes where they're gone. Sometimes late at night, oh, when I'm bathed in the firelight, the moon comes calling a ghostly white. As I recall, like a rock, standing narrow straight, like a rock, charging from the gate, like a rock, carrying the weight, like a rock. Ooh, like a rock. The sun upon my skin, like a
minute. Thank you for your patience. Just as a reminder before we continue, this channel is for educational or perhaps entertainment purposes only, whichever the law would prefer. Please consider hitting the like button if you found the content helpful tonight. It does help the channel get out into more feeds. Allegedly. So, just want to remind those in the Last Timers Club or members, stream level members, we're meeting on Sunday, November 26th at about 7:30 p.m. for our monthly members live stream. So if you're interested in joining or supporting the channel, your support's always appreciated but never expected. You can find further information in the description tab. And I also have an Instagram, a Twitter, and a Facebook that sends out notifications prior to when we go live, because notifications aren't always reliable. And I also stream at the same time on YouTube, Odysee, and Rumble. So tonight and many nights prior and moving forward, we're always streaming on all three platforms. So feel free to join us on those if you'd like. And sometimes those notifications tend to be a little more reliable. And I also have an email list if you'd like to sign up for that. I promise not to ever sell your information. It's just there. I mean, I've had it, I don't know, close to 2 years. I haven't even sent out an email yet. But, something should happen here or otherwise. It's a good backup, and it's one of the few things I actually have control over. There's also a YouTube backup channel and a Truth in Gaming channel, and that's available on YouTube and Rumble, although it's mostly been streaming on YouTube because I'm waiting to hear back from Rumble to give me an additional stream key, which they haven't done yet, but hopefully they will. And then there's also another side channel that I started recently. Haven't uploaded yet, but I promise you all who are waiting for it, it's the Clown World Matrix channel. And you can find that in the description tab as well. And that's going to be exclusive to Odysee and Rumble. So feel free to join us over there for future shows. And I've got a huge backlog of stuff to go on that channel, and it's just a fun channel, nothing serious, just to laugh at the absurdity that is around us. So anyways, let's move along. And one more thing, I want to thank AA for the very kind super chat, and also Hendrik for becoming a Last Timers Club member. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all, and anyone else who supported the channel tonight. I appreciate you. And thank you to all the members. All right, let's roll. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to throw this up so it's easier for the timestamps. All right, so here we go.
Realm, and he said, to get skinny again, I want you to give back to God while you're here on earth by serving others and learning to see the divine in everything, because you don't have to leave the earth to experience the divine. And it hit me in that moment what he was saying. So after he left, I went for a walk. And when I was younger, I used to walk through the woods when I was jogging, and I used to pull leaves off of trees and I would squeeze them, and silly things you do as a child, and, say, I want your energy to help me jog longer, and then I would let the leaves go. And I found myself back in that childlike state. And I began to pull leaves off of trees and look at the moss and the trees and other people. And I began to see that light in everyone, like I did in the ethereal. Began to see that love and light and how we were all connected. And I finally understood that even though it could be difficult here, when we realize that we're all connected and we all come from that same place, that divine love and light of God, we'll find peace within ourselves and peace within our world. And that's how we light up the world, and that's how we deal with living in this physical realm. And I remember thinking that I got to go back to work at some point. And being in the steel industry, I'm in a very conservative business. And even though I knew that I was brought back to testify, and some of the doctors I had told about my experience really encouraged me to write the book, I thought all of my clients in the steel industry, very conservative, mature industry, they're going to think I'm crazy. I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to be able to go back to work, take care of my family, all of this stuff. So for the first year or so, I privately researched all of the things that I had experienced. But then it took me 3 years to write my book because I wasn't sure that people would believe it and what would my customers think. But curiously, when it was published, and it didn't take long for my clients and company and everyone to find out about it and read it, the exact opposite happened. I remember going to see clients that, I thought were ultra conservative people that would never, ever share an experience with me. But I found people opening up to me and wanting to share experiences with me that they privately had and felt and never were able to really feel comfortable in a trusted space of talking to anybody about. So here I found myself going to visit clients, and they would shut the door and say, "Hey, Rob, before we talk about business, I got to tell you something." It was really cool to have them tell me about their own personal experiences. And I was astounded to find out how many people have had spiritual experiences that they have tucked away their whole lives and have never felt comfortable talking about. And then, it struck me, why would anybody find this to be something that was out of the ordinary? After all, we're spiritual beings first.
Because everyone is programmed to, or not everyone, but let's just say in the West, many are programmed to shut down these experiences. And that's like a further veil over the many numerous veils that are already present, to take you away from those experiences that result in questioning your very existence, questioning the system that you live in. Now, is that going to result in fully seeing everything that's going on? No, but it's a potential catalyst for somebody to get there. And if the Matrix can cut off that supply line and make you feel crazy or frame anyone that thinks like that as crazy, guess what? They're going to be less and less inclined to talk about something like that. And that is the Western mindset in a nutshell. You're crazy, you're wacky, we're going to lock you up and throw the key. You're going to be, in a padded room. And I mean, granted, it's not as not as much like that these days, but still, the point is that's what goes through the heads of most individuals in the West. And so sharing these types of things aren't as probable. as they would, let's say, in the East. And either way, both areas have everything locked down in terms of how far you're able to explore or take things or share things without obviously running into some sort of box that the Matrix has readily available and prepared for you to fall into, regardless of what it is, including things like near-death experiences, things like coma experiences, after-death communication, Christ's apparition, on and on and on. Doesn't matter what it is. The Matrix has its way and is ready to accommodate regardless of what you fall into. Doesn't matter what the box is.
Anybody find this to be something that was out of the ordinary? After all, we're spiritual beings first, having a human experience. And before I had this experience, my faith was more like an insurance policy. Hey, I wanted to believe in something just in case, I die, and I want to make sure that I go to heaven. But after this experience, now I know. I know my real identity and the real identity of everyone else. I know my identity comes from divine intelligence. It comes from God. I no longer have to be convinced. Now I know the truth. And once you know the truth is freedom.
Wrong.
And my intuition has also,
not if it's
and my
Matrix
empathy,
truth.
both of those have increased, because now that I realize, we all have this intuition. Sometimes we believe in it, and then sometimes we don't, we doubt. But after understanding how the heart energy works, and that when the heart and the brain are kind of like in coherence, when they're working together, our intuition, this gut, whatever you want to call it, is really where the magic happens in our life. It's where the muse comes from. It's where the divine expresses through us. This is where I learned that God both experiences and expresses through us, through creations. It's the only way it could be designed. That's how the divine intelligence experiences life, through us, through the creations. And being that we're all one and everything is created from the same recipe, this is how we learn to express through this love and light of this intelligence, this God intelligence that we all come from.
Do you sometimes want to go back to the other side?
I do. Even though this experience stays with me, it's so rich. I mean, this happened 7 years ago, and it's like it happened yesterday. But there are times, because we're human, and there are times that certainly I want to go back to that place. It's difficult. I find myself meditating more and more and trying to connect with that place. And after Pastor Mann taught me that, there are ways that we can connect with that divine intelligence. One of the most important ways is by serving others, by connecting with nature, by, doing those things. That's how I reconnect. But yes, it's difficult to continue sometimes when we see horrible things happen in the world and we question why these things are happening. How can that be when things are so beautiful and perfect in that ethereal, in that spiritual realm? But here's what I've come to understand. This web that I saw, it's a reflection of the light and dark struggle that all of humanity deals with from the beginning of time. So what my experience has taught me is that what we do here is a reflection of that spiritual life, and vice versa. It's almost as if when I was in that web, there were dark parts of the web that I saw. There were some lights that weren't emanating as bright as others. That's where we're not allowing this love and light of the divine to shine through us. So I used to think that, what are those dark parts of the web? Is that evil, or what is that? No, I've come to understand it's just not where we're allowing this divine love and light to express through us fully. And God is obvious in life when you understand that it's all about free will. It's a choice. That's why what we do matters. And that's why this reflection, I think, of what we do here is reflected in this web and back. And, you know, that's how it works. They work in tandem, I believe, because that's where we see how God is obvious. Because
I mean, it's incredible, right? Excuse me, sorry. It's incredible, right? It's how, just think about everything we've gone over tonight with Rob. Everything he's been through, everything his wife has been through, everything his daughter's been through, right? From the pretty much when he got here, he was dealing with a full frontal matrix assault. Like just getting punched left, right, up, down, over and over and over again. And Rob stuck through it. And what's the end result we see? Stockholm Syndrome. Just got to call it like it is, right? Like, not being capable, not capable, but not being able to call out this world for what it is, which it's a dumpster fire. It's parasitic. And it, you know, it's not like it's all bad, but at the same time, that's how it works, right? It's got to try and equalize things. And of course, it could depend on the life script that you're having in this moment, in this lifetime. You know, you may have a decent one, a good one, a horrible one, a bad one, an in-between one, where things, but either way, for someone like Rob to go through what he did and still is going through and come out the other end and prop this system up is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. It's very hard to compute and rationalize in me, you know, through, like, in my head. But how is everything love and light? How are we all connected? I mean, if it's so perverse and so disgusting and vile and that, like, the one thing I like to really hammer home is that nothing has changed. Don't listen to anyone out there who says, oh, we're going through the Kali Yuga and, you know, everything's changing. The Kali Yuga, let me just put this in perspective. The Kali Yuga is a very, very convenient narrative that the Matrix has. And what's that narrative, my friends? That narrative is to give you the false hope for your entire lifetime and probably many lifetimes after that or before that. It doesn't matter. These cycles are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. And, well, depending on, you know, when you're born and what, you know, timeline you happen to plop into, well, you know, who knows? Hey, utopia is right around the corner, though. But guess what? You'll be long gone before that utopia comes. But are you going to bank on a belief system like that? The Kali Yuga is by far the biggest shithouse of a psyop that this realm runs, because it's false hope on steroids, and it covers all, like, every single base that the Matrix has. It's incredible. It really is. And yet some will just say, oh, yeah, this is what we're living in. Well, how the hell do you know? You're not going to live more than 100 years. And even if you live 100, let's just be generous and say you're going to live 120 years. Guess what? You're still not going to fall within the cycle. Hello? You're not going to be able to prove it. You're not going to have anything to back it up and claim it to be accurate or true. And even if it's true, utopian matrix is always possible, right? And even in I think Bob Monroe's book, right? Far Journeys, I think they even talk about, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that in the book, they talk about how they had the utopian narrative. They had the utopian view or narrative running, realm running. And it was admitted that it was like too easy to figure out because it was so over the top. So over the top good. Like, so it's the balancing, right? It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, they're going to deceive you here. They're going to deceive you there. It doesn't matter. And guess what? You cannot prove the Yuga cycle. You can't. Nobody can. We can all sit here and sing Kumbaya till the cows come home. And guess what? Nobody can prove it, because guess what? We're all going to die before whatever the hell happens. Regardless of whatever the transition is, it doesn't matter. We're going to be long gone before whatever age is supposed to come through according to the Matrix. How convenient. How convenient. More things that can't be proved and that the Matrix likes to spout to get you to believe in a certain narrative. It is endless, my friends. Over and over and over again, these types of BS narratives are put out there and designed to twist your brain, twist your mind, twist your essence into believing that false hope exists, false prophets exist, and that if you just hang on just a little bit longer, everything's going to be fine. Which leads me into, our Lord and Savior, RFK Jr. I mean, like, it's unbelievable, right? This clown show has no end in sight. Anyways, I'm not even going to go down that road, but I may do a video just on that topic alone. It certainly won't be on YouTube. It certainly won't. It would be on Odysee or Rumble. But there is so much there. It talk about the Matrix putting forth a candidate that is connecting with a certain segment, and probably a large segment of society. I wouldn't say the majority, but maybe even if it's 20, 30, 40%, and I think 40 is probably high, but let's just say 20, 30%. It's very interesting to see. Now, I think what they do is they put these types of candidates that you and I and everyone else will connect with on, a general level, if not a big level, right? And what they are is polls, right? Putting someone like RFK out there is a poll. It's to truly grasp the needle of the nation, to see where people stand. As is, Mr. Trump. Clown show extraordinaire. It's all the same stuff. All the same stuff. It's just varying degrees of it. Like, who's going to buy into all this bullshit, but who's going to maybe fall into the more rational candidate, right? But come election day or primary day or whatever the hell it is, right? The government gets a free poll on where you stand, where your enslavement stands. And then, well, you're probably put on some sort of list as a potential trouble in the future, right? I mean, it's incredible what's going on out there. Absolutely incredible. Don't buy into any of the bullshit. And I'm only going to say one more thing, and I'm going to cut this topic off because it's important, and I'm not going to expand upon it, but I will at some point on Odysee and Rumble. All right. RFK, along with a lot of the other clowns out there in the system, there are doppelgangers, right? But when I say doppelgangers, so, like, a lot of people love to go like, oh, they're cloned and this and that. No, they're wearing a mask. They are wearing a mask. There are absolutely 1,000,000,000%. Nobody can convince me otherwise. It's a fact that there are RFK masks, Trump masks, and Biden masks. All right. Whoever the hell is in the White House right now is not him. It's not. It just is not him. And, you know, there was even a video that came out recently showing, you know, Biden, the mass Biden and stuff. I mean, this stuff has been going on long before Biden was even president. Long before. This is not new. Trump, same thing. RFK, same thing. So it's all false prophets, all false belief systems that try and suck you back in and give you to believe. The RFK rabbit hole is off the charts. Off the charts what's going on with that. Insane. I mean, it's a hell of a rabbit hole. It really is. Anyways, I'll leave it there. I don't even know why I went there tonight, but it's fucking nuts. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts. The system, just think about the manufacturing of almost the perfect candidate for you and you and you and me and almost everybody. It's as close to a perfected candidate of truth that you can get. It's insane. And you got to ask yourself, why? Why? Why is someone like that allowed to exist, allowed to talk in today's world and get insane exposure? Someone say, oh, well, he's not getting exposure. He's getting exposure everywhere. Everywhere. And there is important information that's being put out in the public sphere, and that's great, right? I mean, there is a lot of information that he puts out and is important, but at the same time, it's all a ruse. All a ruse. Every single bit of it. I'll leave it there. Probably shouldn't even have talked about it.
They work in tandem, I believe, because that's where we see how God is obvious. Because I think that we're all born good and we're all born with a moral compass. And one of the doctors that I'm really good friends with, actually the cardiologist that came in that night to save my life, Dr. Bajwa, he's a Sikh. You know, the Sikhs believe that we're all born good. And I believe that because as I researched, there's a chapter in my book entitled All One, because I wanted to, in my quest to figure out this common thread that is woven through all world religions, because I had Hindus and Sikhs and Christians and Jews and Muslims and all of these different world religions. They were all part of my journey. And I wanted to know, what is it that, binds us all together like
the
web?
Matrix, Reincarnation,
What's the common
Soul Trap
thread that has woven through all of these people? And it's love. And it's pure.
Oh, that's love. Oh, Rob. Rob. It's love. It's like, what do you say here, right? You don't want to be nasty, right? Rob, again, my heart goes out to you. You're a freaking warrior in my book. I think you're great. I think you've got just a beautiful heart and essence within, and your daughter and your wife, and you're all in a the most optimal situation you can be in while here. But to again have that consistent narrative put out there that everything just boils down to love. When all you gotta, Rob, I would just ask you, if you happen to be watching this, or anyone who knows Rob, and shares this video with him. I would say, you know, your daughter is in a situation that is extremely wonderful, right? Like, and it's great. But think about the many, many millions that are out there who don't have that luxury. Think about perhaps someone with Rett syndrome, like your daughter, Rob, and they're somewhere else and they're with a family that doesn't care or just ignores their son or their daughter, or is, you know, like they're just thrown away or something. You know, it's there's many of those out there. And that's not to at all discount you, Rob, and your journey and your amazing heart to helping your daughter and your family and stuff like that. But it's still incredible to me how you can experience what you experienced and still kind of come up with this conclusion. That's all I'm saying. It's nothing personal. It's just, I would just throw it out there, Rob, that perhaps, have you ever considered that we're being played? That that you're being deceived by something bigger and claiming to be all powerful, all knowing, all loving, and that there's this big, massive connection between us all, and that it's all for the right reasons. That's all I'm saying, Rob. So, again, I mean no ill will whatsoever and have the utmost respect for you.
Muslims and all of these different world religions, they were all part of my journey. And I wanted to know, what is it that, you know, binds us all together like the web? What's the common thread that has woven through all of these people? And it's love. In its purest form, it's love. And that's why I've come to understand that God is love and light. That's where purpose comes in our lives. And we learn purpose by serving others and understanding how we're all connected in this web.
Yeah, serving others, you mean slaving away, right? Not being sovereign. Having to be subservient to something else. And it doesn't matter whether it's from the very basic level to the elevated level of all levels, like Rob has had to deal with. Again, doesn't take away the loving, the caring personality and comfort that Rob provides his daughter. It's just that this is enslavement. It really is. It really is. And we just need to wake up to the bigger picture, and that there's a overarching deception going on that clouds our judgment and abilities to reclaim our essence fully.
And understanding how we're all connected in this web. But I don't think that unconditional love is easy, because you can't let somebody off the hook either. I mean,
Bingo.
We have to be responsible for our own actions. That's clear. But we also have to try to understand what it is that has driven that person to do such a bad thing. Just like when I saw those nurses and, you know, the regression of events in their lives and what had happened, it was painting a portrait of why they had become who they were. And it's very difficult for us on the surface when something tragic happens to look at someone and say, okay, yeah, all right, I understand that these things happened to you in your life, but why did you do this? And those are questions that are still unanswered. Those are difficult things that I certainly don't have the answer for.
That's, I mean, I love the openness that Rob provides in that moment. I think it's important. It's trying to make sense of things. Like, look, I know I've talked about forgiveness and how it should, like, you shouldn't allow it to consume you, whether you're expecting forgiveness or need to give forgiveness to someone else, right? Like, the way I see it is someone that is spiritual, someone that is, has empathy and compassion for others, and if you've done something wrong to somebody, that you would seek them out and try and ask for that forgiveness. I mean, a lot of this stuff would be on the extreme end, but the fact of the matter is I think a lot of us in here, and I'm not going to make assumptions, but I think a lot of us in here probably have been hurt by others in whatever way it is. And unless that forgiveness is proactively seeked out by the offender, I would say that you don't have to, bend over backwards trying and rectify that. But if you do feel that it is something that you need to do for you to move on and for whatever reason, again, everyone's coming at this stuff from a different angle, a different perception, a different life, a different script, a different experiences in general. Like, so I don't judge anyone for, like, if they need to clear something up or they feel that they need to have some sort of closure with somebody else, that's not a bad thing, right? But the one thing I hold, like, very firmly on is, if, let's just say, you got abused, right? As a child, right? And the abuser goes about their life, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, you don't even know where the hell they are, right? Let's just say that continue, and they're not reaching out to make amends and proactively apologize and do what's right. You shouldn't let it consume you entirely, right? You shouldn't let it dictate how you live your life and then kind of be in the sewer drain because of that action, because chances are that the offender does not give a shit. Let's just call it what it is. It's just normally the case, like, for whatever reason, right? But we can go a step further and even say that, and this is going really deep, but you can also look at it from a perspective, and it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's excusable. Let's just get that on the table right now. But you could also look at it from a perspective of how this parasitic system works, right? In that people have their life scripts when, or beings have their life scripts before they come here, and those things are carried out. And especially if someone is not awakening, right? They're not aware that something like a life script exists, and they offend, they assault, whatever the case may be. You can also look at it through the perspective that they themselves are clouded in their judgment and screwed up because of the life script that they had chosen in combination with, the Matrix, right? Because even when I say like they chose the life script, it's more like it's kind of pushed upon someone. All right, so I don't want any confusion there, because there's always entities involved with pre-birth planning and the life script. And then you add to it the multiple layers and the veil of forgetfulness that come with it. And also, at least take into consideration that we probably all haven't been angels, right? We all haven't been, love and light, or, we all haven't been noble keepers of the meat suit and of earth, and those in our family lineages in the past and stuff. I mean, just be honest and have that as a possibility. Now, can we recall all that? Of course not, right? But it's just something to keep in the back of your mind as, a possibility, right? And again, doesn't excuse any of their parasitic behavior or anything that may have happened to you at any point in your life, violence-wise or psychologically, mentally, whatever, right? It's just trying to put a little bit of an added perspective on things so that perhaps it can help. I don't know if it can or not, or can or won't, but these are things I think everyone should think about. And but at the same time, it's difficult, right? It's difficult. It's not easy to just excuse deeply parasitic, abusive behavior away. It's just not. And, regardless of the degree, it doesn't matter. You should not have had to go through that. Which goes to the bigger question, right? What the hell's going on here? What's going on? And what's going on here is that we need to find ourselves, rediscover our true essence, and liberate ourselves. That's it. Transcend this nut house and move on and never look back. That's it. There's, what is it? Rumsfeld. There's we have unknown unknowns. I've been meaning to isolate that audio clip. We have known unknowns that are unknown unknowns. It's that type of crap, right? I mean, we're so left in the dark, and it's all by design. It's all part of the system. And it's not, me saying that isn't trying to make anyone feel bad. It's just calling it out for what it is. If everything was love and light and, everything was rainbows, pixie dust, and unicorn, that's what I'd be talking about. But it's not. It's just not. We're facing what we're facing, and we just have to be honest with ourselves. That's all. Okay. Rant over. We're almost done with the stream for tonight. Maybe another 5-10 minutes tops.
If we can learn to be a little more tolerant, I think, and to try to look a little bit deeper into the circumstances of one's life, maybe it'll help us understand, and maybe it'll bring us to a point where it's easier to forgive. But certainly that person has to be held accountable for their own actions.
How do you see the future of our world?
I see us going through a very difficult period now in this country. Instead of being pulled together like we were in that web that I saw, I see us being now more and more factions breaking off and people becoming more isolated and angry. So there's so much pressure on society here now. But in my opinion, who we really are is divine intelligence being expressed through physical form. We all come from the same place. We come from this place of divine energy. We're all bound together, made from the same stuff. We're all connected. And if we understood that, we can almost accomplish anything, especially together, instead of apart. And that's the message that I received in the...
Okay, so we're very close to the end, but I just want to say that I disagree with that. And the reason for that, for disagreeing is, and it's not to just be some jerk. It's just because look at the inherent limitations, the flaws that come with the meat suit, with the human form. Look at the inherent flaws and everything that comes with the animal kingdom, right? We're animals, but let's just say, the animal kingdom, It begs the question, why is everything wired that way? Why is it a dog-eat-dog world? Why does the food chain exist? Why are certain things allowed to occur? Because of those inherent flaws. Or for someone overreacting and doing something that they otherwise wouldn't do. Or maybe they want to do it because they're sick psychopaths, right? Fill in the blanks. Everything in between. It's just until there is a deep realization across the board about just the inherent flaws of what this experience is in the entire earth realm, there will be a consistent spinning of the wheels and excuse making, like what we're hearing from Rob about what's going on here. And that's the bottom line. That's the hard truth. Some people may like it, some people may not, but let's just be honest. Let's just call it out for what it is. So unless the wiring, the programming, the left versus right brain is fixed to the point where it doesn't allow something like parasitic behavior to occur, and that perhaps this would just be a stop along our path in our eternal existence just to experience. Until something like that occurs, it's not going to change. And, we consider and sing Kumbaya, and that, all it takes is, awakening the population, this, that. No. Because the inherent flaws and problems come at the core of the development and perception that the human body and animal kingdom experience. That alone comes from what? The source, the creator, God, whoever. That is supposedly, in this big, love tent, right? I mean, let's just talk turkey and get real. All right. Like, I have no time to not just call it like it is. Really. We just need to stop making excuses, right? It would be great if humanity had a sudden change and that things were better and that everyone was open-minded and that you weren't blasted for sharing truth or for keeping an open mind on things. I mean, just how things have changed in the last 10, 20, 30 years is it's just, you can't even describe it. You just can't. Anyways, whatever.
Made from the same stuff. We're all connected. And if we understood that, we can almost accomplish anything, especially together, instead of apart. And that's the message that I received in the web. That's what it was, that we're bound together, connected by this web of God's love and light. And we all come from the same place. And can you imagine the power of that unity, that message of unity, what we can accomplish together on this planet? It's unlimited. So we have to find a way to get there, to save ourselves.
Yes, to save ourselves. And to save ourselves is liberation, sovereignty, non-interference, taking control of ourselves once and for all, and seeing what the hell happens. I say it all the time. I don't have all the answers. You know, all I know is that it seems that once we intermingle belief systems or expectations about certain things, this realm seems to be a freaking all state pro, a gold medal winner on how to deceive, how to get us to be won over. And all it takes is, you know, one more lifetime. One more lifetime. It's the perfect system. It's so well thought out that it wipes our memories lifetime after lifetime to the point where it's almost impossible, not completely impossible, but almost impossible to truly figure out what's going on and to truly discover who and what you are. And that's a true essence being, a creator being, capable of making your own decisions that don't involve something like God or source or creator or Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or on and on. Or Jennifer Aniston or Gwyneth Paltrow or Brad Pitt or, you know, all this stuff, right? And, you know, the whole hero worship thing that this place, how it sets up celebrity to be worshipped. I mean, we can go on and on and on about how deep this stuff goes. But in the end, it's up to everyone as an individual to get out there and hit the books, right? And go within, not without, not expecting, you know, the Dalai Lama or Pope Francis or whoever to give you spiritual guidance, but instead to go within and find your own sovereign spiritual guidance. Because confronting the unknown, I think, is really important. Being honest and not just, you know, caving to what the system presents as solutions or as divine or as truth. I mean, I think anyone who pays like even a quarter of the way attention to what's going on out there should be well aware that, you know, there's something really rotten going on. It doesn't take a brain surgeon. It really doesn't. It's anyways. All right. So that's going to wrap things up, I think, for today. I really enjoyed this one. And Rob, if you happen to ever be listening and you want to come on for a chat, I'd love to have you. I think you're an amazing man, and your wife, and, you know, tip my hat. I really do. Tip my hat to both of you and anyone who's helping take care of your daughter and everything you've been through. So thank you, everybody. It's been fun, enjoyable, and this was a hell of a case. Please consider hitting the like button on the way out and maybe following the channel on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on Odysee and Rumble. Check out the description. I think we're probably going to do Clown World, Matrix Clown World stream on Odysee and Rumble, probably the evening of Thanksgiving. I don't know what time, but I think that's a good time to kick it off because I had a lot of good memories on Thanksgiving evening after the dust settles with the family and everything, and I think it's a good time to introduce the Clown World channel. Can't make any promises, but I'm pretty sure that that's when we'll do it. So feel free. And again, it's not going to be available on YouTube. It'll just be on Odysee and Rumble. So those links in the description. And then, as I mentioned earlier, for anyone who may have just gotten here or kind of came halfway through, the monthly members live stream for November is on November 26th, Sunday. So next Sunday. I'll see you then. And thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all. And stay safe this holiday. Don't work too hard. And if you are working, get that overtime, all right? Break the system. All right. See you soon.